complete, that start but don't complete a program, actually represent a bigger risk than those that don't even start.
Do they have, what other alternative models are there to the delusion model?
There are virtually none. Okay, and if you think into CBT has been sort of mooted as a potential source of another way of approaching the issues. The evidence about CBT and the Duluth model have been virtually no difference in them and very poor outcomes.
Even with CBT?
Yeah, even with CBT. You've got to think in terms of CBT as being not only short-term but also semantically based. Okay, so you're attempting to change the individual's thoughts.
Yeah.
Emotions come before thoughts and direct thoughts.
Okay.
Okay.
So
so that was established in 1996.
What do you do that's different?
So what we're attempting to do is work first and primarily with emotional regulation. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So helping the individual to recognise the emotional state that they're in and they're getting into, and what are the signs in them that they are in an emotional state.
Yeah.
Because for many men, they don't recognise, and women, but obviously our main clients are men. Yeah. Many men just don't recognise themselves in an emotional state and wouldn't be able to tell you which emotional state.
Yeah, I have that problem. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
No. Seriously, it's like 5 minutes afterwards, I can look back.
Yeah, that's
and I can
right.
say, look, I was really emotional then, but at the time, I just
you don't have it.
Yeah.
No. So some of the things about this are really learning to recognise heart pounding, for example, head buzzing, for example. A guy we worked with very recently was, when he was under stress, he was immediately rubbing his head like this and sort of holding onto his head, so that was the sign that the stress was going through. Other people report being weak at the knees. You'll see others that, a sign for them is that they start jigging their legs, and the individual, maybe recognises I'm jigging my legs, for example, but they don't associate that with which emotion is being driven underneath all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is then, if we take the socialisation of men, or boys, okay, as we were just saying a little earlier, come on my little soldier, so men are not supposed to exhibit fear.
No, that's true. Yeah. Well, not exhibit it.
But if your partner and all of your family is about to disappear and everything you work for is about to disappear, which is the emotion which is going on in you? Fear. Okay?
Yeah.
Men, by and large, also manage grief in quite different ways as well. So somebody says something which is hurtful to you, as a bloke, I suppose, in a way. I played rugby until I was 40. Somebody was having a bash at me about something. Well, the chances were I'd be wanting to have a bash back at him. So somebody hits you. There's no sort of direct training, but you don't take that standing up. So the influence is you hit them back, which you can see on the international rugby almost any day of the week. When people get a little bit heated, then what do they call it? Handbags, then, don't they? Which is the way in which we minimise things. But of course, men by and large don't recognise their hurts and don't recognise the grief. So how do they respond? Well, they respond with anger. So rather than, as we would describe it, doing fear, they do anger. Mm-hmm. Rather than doing grief, they do anger. Okay? So part of what we're doing is helping them to recognise fear states in themselves, hurt and grief states in themselves, so that they can focus on the emotional content of those feelings rather than just doing anger.
Do you feel that some of these DAPP courses, because this is something that I've got a feeling for, that the court, in most of these domestic violence cases, they cannot reach the standard for criminal charges. Yeah. Right. So they can't say, so the person can't be charged for assault because they haven't reached.
There's no real evidence. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no real evidence. They haven't gone past the reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
But what you do have is a balance of probabilities, right?
Yeah.
But there isn't attached to that in the family court any means of punishment for the detainee.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I have got the feeling I've gotten the feeling recently, I suppose, that a lot of the DAPP, a lot of this no contact until the DAPP is finished, I've got a feeling that a lot of that is a substitute for the pecuniary measures that would be available under criminal law. Like, we've got the bastard, now we're going to punish him.
We must make him pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he learns. And so it's not necessarily about even getting a successful outcome from the DAPP.
I think it would be fair to say they're not interested in a successful outcome. If they were, if we take the statistics that less than 25% of men complete the program, okay?
Yeah.
Now, the program providers will say, well, this just reflects the men that, the uselessness of the men or the lack of willingness to attend, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But of course, the other side of that is that the program has also got to adjust to the people that they're working with. Okay, and I think my gut feeling is that they're not interested in doing that. If they were, then they would have done that certainly 10 and probably 15 years ago, so that they would have had sort of reasonable statistics of completion, sort of up around the 60 to 70% mark.
They would have reacted to it. They would have reacted to the
if they were really interested in engaging with the men, they would have reacted. So my take is that, in fact, which probably follows a little bit what you're saying as well, the interest is that the men should not complete the work. Because if the men don't complete the work, then they remain in limbo as far as the children are concerned, in a sense, forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that would be the punishment to the men.
And accountability, I know, accounting is all to do with finance, isn't it? And so if you go along as a private individual to some of these courses, I think you're looking at £2,300, £2,400 for the 26 sessions. It comes out at something like £80 a week, and sometimes twice a week, I think, the way some courses run. So there's an amount of money in that. Then the individual has got to go to see their children or their child in a contact centre. That's another £100 or £120 a throw. I can remember a guy that had to have a translator there because the parents were Asian, and so that the children or the child wouldn't speak in a foreign language which the supervisors couldn't understand, because that was the
because something could be happening.
Then that was another £120, and so he was looking at, I think it was £440 for a package, so that the grandparents could. I might be wrong with that now. It might have only been half of that, but a package so that the grandparents could have contact with their grandchild or grandchildren. Okay, and then of course it didn't happen because she decided not to take the children to the centre, and of course all of the fees have been paid regardless.
Oh no.
Yeah. So there are things like that which are really deeply, quite deeply disturbing, and my take is that there is no interest in completing work, and when they don't do that, well, heads we win and tails you lose.
Yeah,
which is maybe a very cynical view on my part, but
it's difficult to do this for too long without becoming cynical.
Yeah.
The success rate for these DAPP courses sitting at 25%.
No, that's the completion rate. The success rate is down around the 1-3%. Okay.
Is that right? So even the completion people don't show no progress. Very, very little progress.
I might have overestimated that. It might be 7% of those who complete. But you're talking about, and if I go back to figures which I did follow up. DVIP quoted in front of a Home Office Select Committee that there were 36 completions in 1 year. Okay, 36, wow. 220 referrals or applicants, and 36 completions, or 33 completions. Yeah, 30 something.
Yeah.
And they claimed in front of the Home Office Select Committee, a 70%
Success rate.
Success rate, okay?
Because out of that 36.
Well, so when you take that 36, that takes it down to 21. Okay? And
Yeah.
21 people out of 220 is a very, very small percentage, and that was probably overestimated by a factor of at least 3.
So my theory as to why so many men drop out before completing it is because of this insistence that they have to confess to things. Well, confess is the wrong word, but they had to, as you say, false confession.
Not too far wrong.
It's a false confession, basically, and to me, we're bordering on the international definition of torture here, to extract a false confession. But the idea that they have to release the reasonable doubt. See, this is where I see the interaction with the legal standards.
Yeah.
So you have a balance of probabilities decision.
Yeah.
And to get over this balance of probabilities decision, you have to make a confession.
Yeah.
Right? And so that takes it from the balance of probabilities beyond the reasonable doubt. Basically, it's a backdoor mechanism to force a balance of probabilities decision to be beyond reasonable doubt. Does that make sense?
No, you lost me there. I think.
Okay, let's just say that you've got a decision on the balance of probabilities, right?
Yeah.
But to rectify the situation, you've got to go on this DAPP course. Right?
No, I think there's a step before that. The step before that is that the judge makes a decision based on the balance of probability.
That's right. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that balance of probability is 51-49.
Well, 50.0000.
Well, yeah, or that as well.
Yeah.
And the decision is then very often swayed, but that it's a finding of fact. And so once that fact has been found, then it is a fact.
Yeah.
Okay? What we come across quite often is blokes that say, yes, 70% of that, 80% of that, 90% of that is absolutely right.
Yeah.
But there is a proportion of that which I didn't do.
Yeah.
So, and for me, can we work with that guy? Of course we can work with that guy. I've got a picture here, just down here on the floor actually, of in acting through a scene of violence in the work that we do. Another guy was playing the role of the abuser, okay?
Yeah.
And the abuser himself was playing the role of his partner at that time. And within the scene, then the individual, the abuser, pushed his partner down onto the floor and was on top of her, pinning her down, and ran his hand up to put it over her mouth to shut her up. Okay? Yeah. A scenario which we've probably all seen. Or come across, not seen, but come across lots of times before. The victim himself, who was of course the abuser in the real life situation, reported that when the hand came up, it engaged his Adam's apple, and for a moment he thought he was going to be choked. Exactly what the partner had said. He tried to strangle me. Well, he didn't try to strangle him, but certainly his hand moving up over the throat engaged the Adam's apple, and it would for a brief moment. And so the guy was able to say, well, he said, I've now understand exactly what it was that my wife was complaining about, my partner was complaining about, and I denied that all along because it had never been part of my intention. But I can see that that could have happened incidentally.
Yeah. Or the reality of the situation is a perspective.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he could take his wife or partner's perspective when he'd only ever taken his own before.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that was real movement for this guy. He didn't need to be admitting that. He'd already done. Already agreed to 80% of what it was he'd supposed to have done. But if he denied that and been sent on a DAPP or one of the DVIP versions, he would have been prevented from taking part because he was in denial. Okay? Or that would have been held against him in the final report, where he still minimises and denies his behaviours towards his partner. Dead in the water in a way. So there are some pretty disturbing things that go on in reports that I read.
I think that from my point of view, and I'm thinking about our friend Mr. B again, that the difference between a balance of probabilities and beyond reasonable doubt is reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And to push someone, you know, it's perfectly viable for this finding of fact to be made,
Yeah.
and for you to accept the decision,
Yeah.
but know within yourself that that's not what you observed, or that wasn't your experience.
Yeah.
Because in this space there's a reasonable doubt. They haven't reached the standard, but they treat it like it's the standard. They treat it like it's the standard that they've gone beyond reasonable doubt, which is actually a really high standard.
Yeah.
They treat it as if it is a material fact,
Yeah.
as opposed to a legal fact. If you treat it like a legal fact,
Yeah.
then fine, we can move on from this. We can say, okay, well, this needs to happen, that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But the way that it's incorporated into the DAPP is to say, no, it's a material fact.
Yeah.
This is actually reality.
Yeah.
And the person undertaking the course says, well, this isn't reality, actually.
That's right.
This is not what I remember.
Yeah.
But they have to incorporate this false reality and pass over.
Yeah.
And that is, as I said before, that is fundamentally deranging. That is saying,
Yeah.
you know, that is basically a torturous...
Kafkaesque is the word which I've heard used on several
Yeah,
occasions to describe that situation.
Yeah, yeah.
I think another confusing issue is when things do go through in a criminal court and the balance and the beyond reasonable doubt is not found.
Yeah.
And beyond reasonable doubt then encourages a number of people to say, I was innocent of that. To which I say, well,
No, that's not true, yeah.
yeah, not guilty doesn't mean innocent, you know. So that's right. It's unproven for whatever reason,
Yeah.
you know. And you then get into the smoke without fire bits and pieces and all kinds of different scenarios. But you know, the individual that goes through a court system, I think, in many respects, can never remain untainted by that. You know, no matter what the outcome was. I think they have a different system in Scotland, actually. I think they have a verdict there which is unproven or something like that, which doesn't come into guilt and not guilty.
Yeah. That's a subtle.
A kind of an interim position.
I was going to bring us back onto something I wasn't trying to thought.
Yeah. Should we take another breather?
Yeah, sure.
Oops.